What's up, YouTube? I'm Brett from Rants. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave that comment down below. We're on the road to 1,000, and we hope you guys can help us get there. Alright, so this is our review for The Bad Batch, Episode 5, here on Rants. Overall, I've enjoyed this series, but it hasn't, just blown me out of the water at how good it is. In fact, I will say, if you wanted to compare it to, let's say, Season 2 of The Mandalorian, or even The Clone Wars, it's somewhere in between those. It's somewhere down below those, but I would say better than Rebels in that regard. Of if you want to talk about, Star Wars series that Disney has had a hand in making. I definitely believe that it has room to grow. I feel like we saw some of that growth this episode with Omega finally taking part in a mission and actually doing something on her own, even though she wasn't successful in doing it. It's a start of making her something less than just a child that needs to be babysitted. So, also, another thing I enjoyed about it was I'm glad that last episode they brought back Fennec Shand. I loved her character in The Mandalorian. I hope that we get to see future episodes this season in The Bad Batch of her. I'm assuming we will, since someone has paid her to, hunt down The Bad Batch and Omega. So I'm hoping that, we get to learn more in the upcoming episodes, but I was very disappointed that unfortunately we didn't get any more information. She was brought up a few times, but she was not, I don't know, it wasn't definitively told who hired her. And that's something that I'm really curious to finding out, just who and for what reason they would have hired her to take out the Bad Batch and I guess capture Omega. But I mean, this episode has some really cool things. They went searching for an underworld boss by the name of Sid, who is voiced by Rhea Perlman, which I thought was pretty awesome. I thought she did a really great job as a voice actor. I've seen her voice acting in a few other things, but I thought she did a really good job as Sid. She really reminded me of a dirty scumbag, underworld boss. So I really liked her character. You know what? She's a character I wouldn't mind seeing more often. I was hoping that Hunter and the rest of them would take more jobs from her and that kind of just play out the rest of the season, because they need money and she needs jobs done. So it's a perfect match in that regard. I don't really like this going from world to world thing that they're doing. It doesn't allow us to get to know that world, and it also doesn't allow us to get to know the characters within that world. So I kind of wish that they would stay put for a little bit. I think this would be a perfect place for them to do such a thing. But I get it, the whole they're on the run. It's kind of like The Mandalorian Season 2. Just only worse, where that they're on the run from bounty hunters and other people, basically the Empire. So yeah, in that regard, I'm kind of it's really a bad version of a clone of The Mandalorian Season 2. But like I said, it has room to grow. I really enjoyed this episode. We end up when it come to Sid, and she gives him this job to go save I forget the thing's name, Mishu or Mashu, something along those lines. They think it's like a kid, but it actually turns out to be a Rancor, and they got to save it from slavers, which I thought was kind of interesting. I've never been a big fan of Zygerrian slavers. Simply because there's nothing there for them. There's no character that just stands out. They're very one-dimensional. Sometimes they seem overwhelming. Other times they're easily defeated. So in that regard, I feel like they're not very good villains. besides the whole thing, oh, they're slavers, so therefore they're evil. But show me a little bit something more about them. Make me care about the head villain of the Zygerian slavers. Like, give me something besides he has a whip. And this really cool, I don't know what you call it, Brezak. I think they're called Brezaks. Lizard. But besides that, there was like nothing that really stood out about them. Like I said, at first they seemed overwhelming, and then at other aspects they were just completely and totally wiped out easily by the Rancor and by the Bad Batch. So I'm kind of like, I kind of feel like we deserve and need better villains than one-dimensional Zygerian slavers. That's my opinion on it. Plus, they caught this one person, and I could not help but think. My children used to watch this show, Puppy Dog Pals. And in this cartoon on Disney, these puppies go across the world and things like that. And in each episode, there's this couple that is always there in whatever country they're currently in, as like tourists. Well, there just happens to be one of those that looks that way in this episode, and I'm like, I couldn't help but just stare at her and think of that. I'm like, she looks so out of place. Her current look and features, along with how she's dressed, just doesn't really fit with the rest of the people that's either slaves or on that planet. So it was just very strange. It reminded me of that. I don't know why, but it kind of threw me off a little bit. I'm like, that's kind of weird. It's like they just like kidnapped a tourist or something. Like that's kind of the way it felt to me. We weren't given very much backstory over the people that they had captured. That's maybe something they could have maybe included. But as far as the Omega becoming a part of the Bad Batch, that actually did happen. Them giving her crosshairs comlink was actually a pretty big deal. I know to Omega it didn't feel like a big deal. She was playing around with it and doing what kids do. But to them that meant something, because that was them officially making her a member of their team by giving her that comlink that meant so much to them because it was Crosshair. So I thought that was kind of like a beautiful moment in there. And I was glad that she actually showed up in this episode. She showed up and, had a plan to rescue them, or at least tried to. And I guess you could say she did and didn't at the same time. She released the Rancor that, went on a spree of taking down everybody. That was kind of, that was really fun. I thought everything with the Rancor. The whole Wrecker versus the Rancor part was just hilarious. I felt like Wrecker, if there's one thing about this show, that if they're going to do this whole team thing when it comes to the Bad Batch, I feel like if you're going to have Wrecker as comic relief, you need to make him at least a little bit more consistent. We saw him easily defeated last episode, just to turn right back around and take on a Rancor by himself. So I'm like, Fennec Shand took him out with the utmost ease. But yet he can take on a Rancor all by himself. So I'm kind of like, that doesn't really fit. I wish that he was a little bit more consistent in that regard. And I'm only picking on Wrecker simply because Wrecker and Hunter are the only ones that we really get a good feel out of. The rest of them are just kind of there to maybe give, like, I don't know, sidelines, occasionally, to maybe, be a difference between, the normal Omega and Hunter lines. But I mean, I feel like that's something that this show could really, really improve upon, is getting the rest of the team involved and making us care more about this team. Because I feel like it's been a really shallow season when it comes to that. I feel like All of them are really interesting characters in their own right, but we're not really. I'm not invested in any of them. Not even Wrecker or Hunter like I should be. Simply because right now they just feel like bland characters. But I feel like they can be improved. I would have loved to seen Crosshair more in this, but you know he didn't even show up. I thought they were going to do more with Crosshair this year, and he's just been almost non-existent so far. As far as the Camino thing too, like I'm like, where did that storyline go? Like it seemed like at the very first part of this, that was going to be like the big deal. That was going to be kind of like the an alternative view of the villains and then the good guys, and then all of a sudden it's like they don't even show that at all. We hadn't even seen it in what, 2 episodes. So I'm like I wish we could see a little bit more of Tarkin, Camino, and some of these and exactly see what they're up to, and especially Crosshair, because Crosshair versus Hunter is really what I'm wanting to see. And of course, we'll probably get that at the end of the season, but I would like it kind of somewhere in between as well. But so far we haven't got to see that. But in this episode we did get to see a monster fight, which it wasn't up to the par of Godzilla versus Kong, but it was still kind of interesting to see. I thought it was cool, how you could see how the Rancor versus, I think those things are called Brezaks. They those Brezaks, they can fly and then they can use their tails, but once that Rancor jumped on top of it, it was completely and totally out of its league at that point, so it takes off. So it didn't lead up to the epic fight scene that I was hoping we get to see between them, but hey, that's cool with me, because we did get to see a Wrecker versus Moochie fight scene at the end, so I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. I can leave off that where it's not that big of a deal, simply because we did get to see a really funny, cool fight scene between the Rancor and Wrecker. So I mean, overall, like I said, I wish that they would have maybe included Fennec Shand this episode. Just something to make us feel like, okay, there's impending doom happening. I felt like they don't do a very good job of that in this show, and I wish that they would. Just letting us know, giving us like one scene of either the Empire or Fennec Shand or somebody, to let us know that, hey, they're coming for them. But we don't get to see that, and I was a little bit disappointed in that regard. But overall, I mean, besides the fact that I wish the other teammates would, in the Bad Batch, would actually show themselves. The only complaints I had with this episode was that I felt like, they maybe could have done a little bit more with getting the team involved, and then, maybe exploring who Fennec Shand was, who hired Fennec Shand. So, I mean, besides that, I enjoyed seeing Rhea Perlman. I thought did a great job at that. That was one of the more fun underworld bosses that we've seen so far in Star Wars, simply because of the voice actor who portrayed him, and also portrayed her in the. I just thought she did a great job. I'm kind of losing focus here, but I thought she did a great job as Sin. But it is, like I said, one of the better underworld bosses that we've seen in all of Star Wars so far. Because, I mean, just voice acting, humor along with seriousness. It wasn't too silly. It wasn't too serious. It was just perfect in between, I thought. But overall, I would give this episode more like a 7 out of 10, simply because of the things that I had already mentioned about how, it could have had more Fennec Shand in it. The rest of the team could do something occasionally instead of just Wrecker and Hunter. I'm glad that Omega is now a part of this team. And besides the Comlink seen, there wasn't like any heartwarming moments, or either bonding moments, I guess you could say, between Omega and the rest of the team. So I mean, besides that, I thought it was a pretty good episode. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the next episode. I really think it's gonna. I really think it's going. I hope it's going to pick up. If it doesn't, this is going to be a waste of a season. And I know that Disney is expecting big things from the Bad Batch. It has potential. They've just got to figure out ways to utilize it better. And I feel like right now they're just doing a really generic version of The Mandalorian when it comes to babysitting and planet hopping because of threats. That's all it feels to me right now. But we'll just have to see. Hopefully a little bit later on down the season, hopefully starting next episode, we'll get all of our answers about Fennec Shand, and maybe they might stay for a while in a certain place and let us get to know the characters that are on each one of these planets that they're visiting, or at least get to explore the planet itself. But as always, guys, let me know what y'all think. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you looking forward to the next episode? Let me know down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Y'all take